But we now have a little less intrigue about what he's going to say about Jayden Daniels because the cat's out of the bag. Adam Schefter with the report. You just heard Toby break it down for you on the Fan. Thanks to him for the update. Schefter saying Daniels unlikely to play Sunday Night Football against the Broncos, but will return to practice. So I take that to mean, Danny, that if he's going to practice some throughout the week, ramping up, presumably he would be back next week against the Vikings. And that would mean you get 5 games of Jayden Daniels down the stretch. Minnesota, the Giants, by the way, both of those very winnable. The Vikings might be starting Max Brosmer, whoever that is. And the Giants, we don't know if Jackson Dart will be back or not. Jameis Winston the last couple of weeks, very, very competitive against the Giants, took the Lions to overtime. They needed a 59-yard field goal to get to OT against the Giants yesterday. That's a tougher customer than they were in week 1, but very winnable. Then you got Eagles, Cowboys, Eagles to finish. But what a difference in terms of intrigue and just overall interest and import to the final 5 games of this season if we get to watch Jayden Daniels developing at quarterback.
Yeah, so, but to this weekend specifically, this was always a little bit strange to me. And I'm not ripping anybody or criticizing anybody, but that injury was so gruesome in real time that in my mind, he was done for the year. Of course, I'm not a doctor. I have no medical training of any kind. I'm just sore and tired every day. But it looked so horrible. And then the timeline was, well, maybe it's a handful of weeks, 4 or 5, or, again, there were some vagaries and no one's given me kind of a definitive. But this would have been what, exactly 3 weeks since that injury? And that seemed really rapid to me, even with a bye week. I'm just talking about real time from the moment he was injured to the moment he might be coming back. So it sounds like they're doing what they did before, which I give them credit for, by the way. We are not in a rush, especially now that we're 3 in a million and not going anywhere this year. This is more about his development. So if there was maybe, again, this is a playoff game this weekend, maybe he's in some sort of brace and we're going at it, but it's not. So he's not. They're going to take their time, and we get, hopefully, the healthiest version. I'm into it.
Yeah, totally. I mean, is there another side to that conversation? I don't know that anybody was banking on him being back for Denver that quickly. I'll just speak for myself. Before Adam Schefter's report a few minutes ago, while all signs were pointing toward him returning imminently over the next few weeks at some point for a month or so of this season, you go back to the sideline report with the access that you get with these networks in the last game that they played against the Dolphins. It was, who's the host of the NFL show on NFL Network? Jamie Erdahl. Jamie Erdahl's on the sideline of that Madrid game saying, Jayden Daniels is at home running around and throwing passes right now, and the team's blown away by how fast he's recovering. Like, they're telling her and NFL Network in those meetings how much he's come along. They know they're going to pass that along to us. So they were kind of setting the table for a return. In all of the conversations we've been hearing, everything Dan Quinn has said or hasn't said at the podium would have led you to believe Daniels was eventually coming back. But I don't think Sunday Night Football against the Broncos out of the bye was ever a, put it in pen. We'll see. Was kind of where they were at. The last time they talked about this was going into that Lions game way back early in the week that it culminated with that November 9th game, like right around the 4th or the 5th. And they said, we'll talk to you again in 3 weeks. So if you could get 3 division games, 2 against Philly's vaunted defense, 1 against a improved Cowboys defense, and then you squeeze in the Giants and the Vikings, and it's 5 more games of sample to just get him back to feeling himself, playing at a high level, get this offense on track going into the offseason, it could be a really, really big deal for him going into year 3, which is going to be a make it, break it year for Cliff Kingsbury and a lot of elements of this offense, I think.
Yeah, for the whole organization, because you've got 2 samples that cancel each other out at this point.
Right. You might have a 12-5 on one ledger and a 5-12 on the other, and we're going, will the real Washington Commanders please stand up?
You went plus 100, you went minus 100 this year in every single way. And some of it your fault, others not. I mean, as everything, this was a Murphy's Law year. Anything bad that could have happened, 100% did to this Washington team. So that will be a nice bright spot. Again, I'm more, I think you and I are disagreeing about this in general, but I consider this more garbage time in general because the games don't have any meaning, right? Where there's a reason we don't put a lot of import on a team's down by multiple touchdowns. The other team is just kind of backing off, waiting for the clock to expire, and the guy throws for an extra 100 yards in the 4th quarter of a game that's a blowout. To me, that's what all these games are. There's nothing on the line, and the sample I care way more about was when they all failed. So I put that aside in terms of the production. But the value of having him go through all of this when we're still in a learning phase, as great as last year was, and as good as some of the moments this year have been enough, That to me is what's exciting about it, is growth, development, not necessarily recapturing some magic that may or may not have ever existed, or certainly did last year. But this is about kind of him going through, what are my lessons? Am I countering what they're doing to counter me? What is Kingsbury going to do? What's this? How's this offense going to look? I want to see the responses. That's what I care most about, less so the wins or anything prolific or negative.
Yeah, the wins and losses in a quarterback eval never mattered to me anyway, but certainly not in a lost 3-8 season. And this is obviously garbage time for the year. Are you going to make the playoffs?
No.
Then it's garbage time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what this is. As soon as you're mathematically eliminated, then it's literal garbage time. But we all kind of know at this moment where they're headed, and in this case, where they are not, which is that they are not going to make the playoffs. They're not going to run the table. And even if they did, with their tiebreaker metrics at 9-8, they would have almost no chance to get in. So I think when I saw yesterday going into games, I don't know how much it changed, but they had like a 1.8% chance to make the playoffs at that point. That feels about right. 1 out of 100 times, if you simulate the rest of this season, and that maybe even feels a little aggressive, you might get into the postseason. I would say it'd probably be like 1 out of 500 times that you would get into the playoffs. But it doesn't change it. It can be garbage time, and also getting him back on the field is still really, really important. Getting him back so that he can mentally clear whatever hurdle there is after yet another injury is a significant thing to me. Getting him back so that you're not knocking off rust, missing games and practices and those things in September. At that point, your last game you will have played in is way back in early November. You missed basically, the final 2+ months of the regular season. Now you're finishing on the field. It's like showing back up in class after you've been out for 2 weeks with that overwhelming feeling of all of the sheets that you're going to be given and all the documents you need and all the homework you got to catch up on. Either you're going to do it now and just get ahead of it on Friday before the weekend, or you got to think about it all weekend and you still got to do it on Monday. I want to get all that stuff over with so that he's just, forget rehabbing, forget any kind of getting back to full speed this offseason. You're just hit the ground sprinter developer again. I'm trying to go from whatever I was this year to better, not trying to play catch up still because I'm in rehab mode.
I think it's a good way to put it. Had he
not have come back.
Yeah.
And that's the way I view this. On top of that, so much of this year with the offensive regression and Daniels, who's been solid, but has not been at the level of last year, we have correctly, in my opinion, explained away as injuries. Look at his receivers. He doesn't have this guy. He doesn't have that guy. He should, against the Vikings and the Giants in his return games, if he comes back when we think he's going to, have Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel at wide receiver. He should have the full tight end room. He should have the full running back room, other than Austin Eckler. They should have their entire offensive line out there. So you're talking about now what is a very, very normal, mostly very healthy offense. So that won't be on the table as an explanation. Like, let's go out and play good football against the New York Giants and the Minnesota Vikings and the Philadelphia Eagles, the types of teams you're going to have to play next year in important games. Let's go out and play at a high level and drag some guys into the fight and elevate the dudes around us like we did last year. I think that's going to be what we want to see down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, for me, my focal point is what's going to be different. And in other words, I don't want to see the same things that led us to this year, that led us to this whole malfunctioning, 3 steps back for every half step forward, kind of same procedural type stuff. I want to see I just want it to look different. I don't want him at risk all the time. I'd like him to make some huge adjustments. I want Kingsbury to make the adjustments. Again, the league that gets paid to stop you did for the most part. And it is injury. Yes, that absolutely happened. You are worse without McLaurin, without Deebo, without or even a compromised Deebo, without even options like Luke McCaffrey. When it's Chris Moore running the most important route on a 3rd and 7, a slower than ever Zach Ertz running key routes for you, falling short of first down after first down, et cetera, false starting, and and so on. You're not going to be as good in offense as you were last year with everything operable. There's also the study against you. The way that you're being defended changed. The way that they're limiting all the quarterback run stuff. And that was the reason for this is why we line up in these formations, is to emphasize the quarterback run. Well, that's been removed. They've shoved it other teams. This isn't just one team. Every team that's played them has stuffed every single design quarterback keeper on read option and different looks. So what's the adjustment? What's going to be different? Can you keep him upright, safe, removed from all the danger? That's my primary focus.
He's Danny. I'm Grant. You're listening to The Fan. The breaking news to kick off our show in our first hour from Adam Schefter. Jayden Daniels is expected to be back at practice on Wednesday. Not expected to play against the Denver Broncos, but he's tuning up to return. I guess it's possible that Dan Quinn could suggest that he's coming back to practice, but that his status for games is still uncertain. And maybe they could do the thing that fans want them to do and just kind of redshirt him and not bring him back. That wouldn't make a lot of sense to me. But what we know from Schefter is that he's supposed to be back at practice this week, and that he's not expected to play on the current trajectory Sunday night against the Broncos.